After I survived a fire, I stayed with my cousin while recovering. One day, I found my identity stolen, my bank accounts, my credit, even my name. When I confronted her, she said, "I lived in your shadow for too long. Now it's mine." I said nothing until I walked into the police station with a time-stamped email she'd sent to my employer claiming, "I never thought I'd lose everything in one night." The fire started in the middle of the night, some faulty wiring in the apartment below mine. I was living in a small building in Joliet, Illinois. I woke up to smoke pouring through the vents. By the time I got to the hallway, the heat and flames had already taken the staircase. I had to crawl back into my unit and wait by the window until the fire department came. I was in the hospital for 11 days. Second-degree burns along my back and arms. They said I was lucky. I didn't feel lucky. I couldn't move right, couldn't dress myself, couldn't even lie down comfortably for weeks. Every little thing hurt. My apartment was gone. My car was ruined, smoke and heat damage. I didn't even have a toothbrush. My cousin Dana reached out while I was still in the hospital. We weren't close, but we'd seen each other over the years at holidays, funerals, weddings. She lived an hour east in Aurora, in a small apartment off Indian Trail. She said I could stay with her while I recovered. I didn't have a choice. I couldn't work, and my insurance payout was still weeks away. So I went. At first, she was kind. She helped with my bandages. She drove me to physical therapy. She even gave me her bedroom and slept on the couch. I thought I was lucky again. I told her how grateful I was, more than once. I should have seen it sooner. The first red flag came 2 weeks in. I noticed my mail had been opened, bills, bank stuff, even a letter from my employer. She said she thought it was hers. "Our names are close enough," she joked. I let it slide. I didn't want to seem ungrateful. Then one day, I went to pick up a prescription, and my card got declined. I knew I had money in the account, just under $4,000. I went home, logged in, and saw a long list of purchases I didn't make. Clothing stores, electronics, a $600 charge at an outlet mall in Schaumburg. I never even left the house that week. I froze the account and called the bank. They asked me about an address change I never made. Someone had changed the billing zip code and added a secondary email. One letter off from mine. That's when I realized this wasn't some random hacker. I asked Dana about it straight up. I showed her the charges. She didn't even pretend to care. "I don't know what you're talking about," she said, flipping through her phone. "Maybe you gave your info to the wrong person. Or someone got your laptop." It made no sense. My laptop hadn't left the apartment. But again, I let it go. Not completely, but enough to avoid a fight. I didn't want to believe she'd do that. She'd been helping me. She gave me a place to live. She helped change my bandages when I couldn't move my arm. But the truth just kept unraveling. 2 weeks later, I called my job to check in. I worked in operations for a logistics company out in Naperville. Nothing glamorous, but I liked it. My manager sounded surprised to hear from me. "I thought you resigned," she said. That's when my stomach dropped. She forwarded me the email. It was written from my personal account, the same one logged into my laptop. It was short, formal, and cold. "I appreciate everything the company's done for me, but after recent events, I've realized I'm not fit to return. I hereby resign my position, effective immediately." It was signed with my name. The timestamp was from a night I'd taken sleeping pills, strong ones. I had passed out early. There's no way I sent it. That email cost me my job, my health insurance, my only sense of normalcy. I knew. I went digging through every account I had. She had changed the password on my email, applied for credit cards in my name, requested replacement debit cards. She had even ordered a new driver's license using my information. I only found out when a rejection letter from a loan company came in the mail. My name, her address. She was erasing me. I confronted her that night. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't have the energy. I just held up the printed email and asked, "Why?" She leaned against the kitchen counter, arms crossed, and said it like she'd been waiting to get it off her chest. "You've always had everything," she said. "The job. The degree. Everyone liked you. I was just the screw-up cousin. You were the golden one. I lived in your shadow for too long. Now it's mine." She didn't even sound angry. She sounded relieved. I didn't say a word. I just stared at her. I didn't sleep that night. I sat at the kitchen table, printing out everything. Emails, bank statements, screenshots, mail. I made a folder and labeled it Dana, Identity Theft. The next morning, I limped into the Aurora Police Department and asked to speak with someone in fraud. The detective was a quiet guy in his 40s. I handed him the folder. When he opened it, I pointed at the email and said, "She stole my name. Now I want it back." The detective looked through the folder for a long time. He asked me to explain everything again. When the mail started coming in, when the money disappeared, when I found the email, I told him everything. I didn't leave anything out. He nodded a lot, wrote things down. Then he asked, "Do you have proof she had access to your laptop when that resignation email was sent?" I said, "She lived with me. We shared the same Wi-Fi. She used it to shop online for my couch. It never left the apartment." He paused. "We'll open a case, but identity theft's complicated. We'll need to subpoena the IP data from your email provider, trace where the login came from, tie it to her. And that takes time." I left the station knowing justice wasn't coming fast. But I also knew I wasn't dropping this. I went back to Dana's that night and packed everything I owned, which, honestly, wasn't much. I stayed in a cheap motel off Route 59 for a few days while I got a new phone, new bank account, and started working with an identity theft attorney. Every call I made felt like digging through the ashes of my old life. And Dana? She started posting pictures online, photos of her at dinner with friends, tagging herself with my name, literally using it as her screen name. She was wearing clothes I'd bought before the fire, smiling in selfies like nothing happened. It was like watching someone perform a role they stole from me. Then the bills started hitting. She hadn't just used my info to buy things. She'd taken out a $10,000 personal loan. She'd missed 2 payments already. My credit score dropped over 200 points in 1 month. I couldn't qualify for a studio apartment. I couldn't even lease a used car. I tried to call her once. She didn't answer. She texted me later. "Don't blame me because people always gave you more. I just took what I deserved." I forwarded it to the detective. A week later, my old job emailed me. They'd been contacted by someone claiming to be me, asking for my W-2 forms. I told them to send nothing. I explained what had happened. HR promised to hold any requests and to keep the email chain as evidence. It got worse. I found out she'd accessed my old health insurance portal. I only realized it when I got a letter confirming a change of beneficiary. She tried to name herself as my next of kin. The guts it took. I could barely believe it. But the police? They moved slow. I understood they had procedures, but it felt like she was outpacing them. Living in my identity, collecting my pieces, while I struggled to even prove who I was. I was spiraling. I'd gone from a stable job, apartment, savings, and plans, to scraping together cash from a GoFundMe my coworkers had started after the fire. I hated it. I hated asking for help. I hated feeling weak. And I hated her for turning my recovery into her opportunity. I started documenting everything, every day. Phone calls, emails, copies, dates. I wanted a timeline so tight she couldn't wiggle out of it. But then I learned something that pushed it all over the edge. A neighbor at Dana's complex, a woman named Rochelle, called me out of the blue. She said, "I thought you moved away?" I asked what she meant. She said, "I saw your cousin moving your stuff out of storage last week. She said you'd moved to Arizona and gave her permission to sell whatever you didn't want." I didn't have a storage unit. I'd lost everything in the fire. Dana had rented one, in my name, and filled it with whatever she'd bought using my money. She was selling it off, liquidating the last pieces of me. That's when I stopped waiting for the police to move. I started planning how I'd make her regret ever touching my name. I found the storage unit the next morning. It was listed under my name at a facility near Farnsworth Avenue. I walked in and told the manager I'd like to see my unit. He didn't even blink. Pulled it up, handed me the clipboard. Just sign here, he said. I hesitated. I wanted to see what was inside, but technically, I wasn't the one who rented it. I said, actually, I think someone rented this without my consent. Do you have camera footage of who's been accessing it? That got his attention. He looked up. You're saying someone used your name? Yes, I said. And I'm already working with the police. He stared at me for a second and then nodded. Give me a day. I'll pull the tapes. I thanked him and walked out. I didn't want to tip Dana off that I knew yet. I needed to be sure I had everything lined up. That afternoon, I emailed the detective and my attorney. I included the storage unit info, my conversation with the manager, everything. Later that night, something weird happened. I got an email from a Gmail account I didn't recognize. No subject. Just a line of text. You think she did this alone? At first, I thought it was spam. But then I scrolled down and saw an attachment. A PDF with a scanned document. It was a credit card application. My name. My social. But the listed employer wasn't mine. It was a daycare center in Naperville, where Dana's older sister, Trina, worked. I hadn't spoken to Trina in over 5 years. I didn't even know they were still close. I always thought Dana and Trina hated each other, sibling rivalry, the usual stuff. But now I started connecting dots. The fake email that resigned from my job? It mentioned emotional instability, even hinted at substance abuse. That wasn't Dana's style. That sounded like something someone with HR experience would write. Trina had worked in HR for years. I started digging into everything again, this time with Trina in mind. I searched the Gmail address that sent me the email. I found posts on Craigslist under it, selling electronics and gently used women's clothes, all in Aurora. The listings were taken down within hours. But I screenshotted everything. The final straw was a phone call from my old landlord in Joliet. He said, "Hey, weird question. Did you reapply for your old apartment?" What? Someone came by asking if 4C was still available. Said she was you. She had your ID. Same name, same birthday. Looked a little different, but people change, right? I told him to call the police if she came back. She was trying to step into my life completely. It wasn't just about money anymore. It wasn't even just about identity theft. It was erasure. She and her sister had worked together to dismantle my life, while I was still recovering from nearly dying. I felt sick. I felt furious. But more than anything, I felt clear. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about making sure no one could ever do this to me again. I was going to take everything from them, legally, publicly, and piece by piece. And I wasn't going to stop until they knew exactly what it felt like to be stripped of your name, your place, and your worth. The storage unit footage came through a week later. Dana, on camera, multiple times, opening the unit with a key fob, loading my stolen belongings into the back of a rented U-Haul. One trip even showed her with Trina. Same bright red hair. Same smug face I remembered from our family reunions. They looked like they were helping someone move. The manager handed over the footage to the police after I gave them the report number. From that moment on, things started moving faster. I met with the detective again. He had already pulled IP logs from Google that traced the resignation email and credit applications back to Dana's apartment. Same Wi-Fi network, same timestamps. The icing on the cake was the recorded phone call from the loan company where someone had impersonated me, answering security questions that only family would know. I froze. That call, her voice, it was Trina. The detective nodded. We're submitting charges against both of them. Identity theft, fraud, forgery, wire fraud. At this point, it's not just theft, it's conspiracy. They were arrested 3 days later. Dana went quietly. Trina argued with the officers in the parking lot, claimed it was all a misunderstanding. They searched Dana's apartment and found my old mail, a hard drive with stolen documents, and a notebook where she'd written down my account numbers and passwords. It was surreal. Seeing their mugshots online, hearing about the bail hearings, watching my quiet, bitter cousin go from smug to shackled. Trina lost her job the same week. The daycare center issued a public statement distancing themselves from her. But I wasn't done. My lawyer helped me file a civil suit. Emotional distress, financial damages, loss of employment. It wasn't just about the money, it was about making this public. Making it follow them everywhere. Every job interview. Every Google search. We went to court 6 months later. They tried to settle. I refused. I sat on that stand and told the jury everything. How I almost died in a fire, how I leaned on someone I thought was family, how they gutted my life piece by piece while I was at my weakest. I showed photos, emails, statements, the resignation letter, the texts. The jury came back fast. They awarded me damages. Enough to clear the debt. Enough to restart. But more than that, they gave me something I couldn't put a price on. They gave me my name back. Dana pled guilty to multiple charges. Got 3 years, served half. Trina fought the charges longer, tried to paint herself as misled by her sister. The evidence buried her. She got 18 months. When they got out, they couldn't find work. Their names were flagged across the internet. Family turned cold. Nobody wanted to hear the real story. They became known as the cousins who tried to erase blood for money. I rebuilt. Slowly. New apartment. New job. My old company took me back. They said what happened to me felt like a damn movie. But it wasn't. It was my life. And every step I take now is mine alone. I walk lighter. I sleep better. Because I took everything they tried to steal. And I made sure they'd never forget what it cost them. They wanted my name. Now it haunts them.